I was once in a meeting where someone, let's just call them a real piece of work, looked right at me and said something so cutting that I could feel my entire body shift into fight mode. My heart pounded, my face got hot, and in that moment I had two choices. I could fire back with something just as sharp, or I could take a breath and own my response. Here's the thing, most of us think we have control over our emotions until we're standing in front of someone who knows exactly how to push our buttons. And the truth? Staying calm when provoked isn't about being passive, it's about power. It's about choosing who gets to control your emotional state, you or the person trying to pull you into their storm. Research shows that when we react out of anger, our brain actually shuts down the part responsible for rational thinking. So when we let provocation dictate our response, we're literally giving up our ability to think clearly. But here's the good news. Calm isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And today, we're going to talk about how to do exactly that. First, understand your nervous system. When we feel attacked, our brain activates the fight, flight, freeze response. The moment you feel heat rising in your chest, that's your nervous system flooding with cortisol. The trick? Notice it. Name it. Oh, that's my body gearing up for battle. Just naming the reaction slows it down. Let me tell you a quick truth. Our bodies are wired for survival, not for grace under pressure. When someone provokes us, our nervous system doesn't stop to ask, is this an actual threat to my life or just my ego? No. It just floods our body with stress hormones and says, defend yourself. That's why you feel that tightness in your chest, that heat creeping up your neck, that overwhelming urge to either lash out or shut down completely. That's your biology doing exactly what it was designed to do. Keep you safe. The problem, most of the time we're not in danger. We're in a conversation, a tense one maybe, a frustrating one definitely, but our body reacts like we're standing face to face with a saber-toothed tiger. And if we don't know what's happening, we let our nervous system hijack us. We let it dictate how we respond, and before we know it, we've said something we regret, slammed a door, fired off a text that felt good in the moment but terrible an hour later. Now, I want to pause here because this is important. This isn't about shaming yourself for reacting. It's about understanding what's happening in you so you can choose what happens next. And one of the most powerful things we can do is notice when our nervous system is gearing up for battle. A study from UCLA found that simply naming an emotion can reduce its intensity. That's right, just the act of saying, that's just my body shifting into fight mode, can actually slow down the stress response in your brain. So instead of being inside the reaction, drowning in it, you step outside of it, you observe it in that tiny space between feeling and reacting. That's where your power is. Think about the last time someone really got under your skin. Maybe it was a coworker, a family member, or that person in traffic who, let's be honest, was personally out to ruin your day. What if, in that moment, instead of snapping or shutting down, you had paused just long enough to recognize what was happening inside you, just long enough to say, okay, my chest is tight, my hands are clenched, this is my body reacting, not my character speaking. What would have changed? See, when we don't name it, we become it. We say, I am angry, instead of I feel anger. And there's a huge difference between those two things. One traps us, the other gives us space to choose. This is a skill, not a switch. You won't wake up tomorrow suddenly immune to provocation. But the next time you feel that surge, that heat, that tension, just try this. Notice it. Name it. That's the first step to reclaiming control. Don't take the bait. People who provoke are often looking for a reaction. They feed off emotional energy. The best response? A pause, a deep breath, a moment of silence. Nothing disarms a provocateur faster than a person who refuses to play the game. Now, let's be real. When someone says something rude, dismissive, or downright insulting, the last thing we want to do is stay calm. Every instinct is screaming, say something, prove them wrong, put them in their place. But here's the problem with that. When we react, we give them exactly what they wanted: attention, energy, power. And before we know it, we're caught in their game, playing by their rules. I once had someone, let's call them particularly skilled at the art of passive-aggressive combat, say something to me that was so carefully worded, so perfectly designed to get under my skin, that I felt it land like a dart. And for a split second, I had that fire in my chest, that, oh, I've got a good one to say back moment. But instead of reacting, I just paused, I took a breath, and I watched them. And do you know what happened? They got uncomfortable because they weren't expecting that. They were expecting me to snap, to argue, to feed into the tension they were creating. Instead, I let their words just sit there, awkward, hanging in the air with no energy to fuel them. And within seconds, you could see it all over their face. They didn't know what to do next. Because here's the thing, provocation is an invitation. It's an offer to engage. And we get to decide whether we accept it or not. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. The idea that emotions are transferable. If someone throws anger at us and we catch it, we start acting from their emotional state instead of our own. But when we refuse to match their energy, when we stay grounded in our own state of mind, we break the cycle. Think about how many times an argument escalated because someone threw bait and we took it. How many moments of regret could have been avoided if we had just taken that breath, that pause, that second to decide whether this was a battle worth fighting. And let me be clear, this isn't about letting people walk all over us. It's about choosing our battles instead of being lured into them. There's a difference between standing your ground and being dragged into someone else's storm. The best way to disarm someone who is provoking you, starve them of the reaction they were hoping for. A calm response, a neutral expression, or even a simple interesting can be more powerful than any comeback you could have fired back in the heat of the moment. Because at the end of the day, staying calm isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about owning them. And when you refuse to take the bait, you keep your power exactly where it belongs, with you. Reframe the narrative. Instead of thinking they're attacking me, shift your perspective to they're struggling with something. Most provocation comes from insecurity, stress, or unmet needs. That doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does change how we engage with it. I don't know about you, but I used to believe that when someone was rude or dismissive, it meant something about me. If they were short with me, I must have done something wrong. If they made a passive-aggressive comment, I must have somehow deserved it. And if they lashed out, well, obviously I wasn't good enough, smart enough, or likable enough to avoid it. Then I learned something that completely shifted how I saw these moments. Most of the time, people's behavior has nothing to do with you and everything to do with what's going on inside them. There's a quote I love that says, hurt people hurt people. And it's true, the vast majority of the time, when someone is provoking, criticizing, or being unkind, they're operating from their own wounds, their own stress, their own feelings of inadequacy. Think about the last time you were really snappy with someone. Maybe it was a bad day, you were exhausted, or something else was weighing on you. Chances are your frustration wasn't actually about the person you snapped at. It was about something you were going through. Now let's flip that. When someone tries to provoke you, what if, just for a moment, you considered that their behavior might not be about you at all? What if they're having a terrible day? What if they're struggling with something you can't see? What if the way they're speaking to you is the way they speak to themselves every single day? Not saying this to justify bad behavior. Boundaries still matter. Accountability still matters. But when we can reframe the narrative, when we can stop taking everything so personally, it changes how we respond. There's a study in neuroscience that shows how our brains interpret situations through what's called the negativity bias. Our tendency to assume the worst, especially when emotions are high. If someone rolls their eyes at us, we don't naturally think, oh, they must be tired. No, we think, oh, they don't respect me, they think I'm stupid. But what if we challenged that assumption? What if we gave people just a little more grace? Because here's what I know. When I assume someone's words or actions are a reflection of them and not a definition of me, I react differently. I don't take the bait as easily. I don't spiral into self-doubt. I don't feel the need to prove something that was never about me in the first place. And maybe, just maybe, that tiny shift in perspective is what keeps me from carrying someone else's burden as my own. Master the power of non-reactivity. Calm is contagious. When you refuse to escalate, you take away their power. A steady voice, relaxed posture, and controlled tone can turn tension into neutrality. It's not about winning, it's about not losing yourself in the process. I want you to think about the calmest person you know, that one person who, no matter what's happening, seems steady, unshaken. The kind of person who, in the middle of chaos, doesn't get louder, they get clearer. We all know someone like that. And let's be honest, when they're around, things just feel different. That's because calm is contagious. Just like anxiety spreads, just like anger escalates, so does calm. Now, let's flip it. Think about the last time someone provoked you and you did react. Maybe you snapped back, maybe your voice got sharp, your body tensed, your heart raced, and maybe, just maybe, that reaction felt good in the moment, but afterward, you carried it. The frustration, the overthinking, the, ugh, why did I let them get to me feeling. See, that's the thing about reactivity. It feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it hands power over to the other person. It means they got under our skin, dictated our response, pulled us into their emotional storm. And once we're in it, we're no longer acting from a place of intention, we're acting from impulse. But here's the good news. Non-reactivity is a skill. It's something we can practice. There's a technique used by Navy SEALs called box breathing. A simple but powerful way to regulate your nervous system. It's 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4. Why do they use it? Because when the stakes are high, when emotions surge, staying calm is the difference between making a clear decision and making a dangerous one. And while most of us aren't in combat zones, we are in situations that trigger us at work, in relationships, even standing in line at the grocery store. The question isn't, will I get triggered? The question is, what will I do when it happens? Because here's the thing, non-reactivity isn't about being passive, it's about being deliberate. It's not ignoring conflict or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's choosing how we show up. A steady voice instead of a sharp one, a relaxed posture instead of a clenched jaw, a deep breath instead of a knee-jerk reaction. And the more we practice it, the more we realize something pretty incredible. We get to decide how we respond, not the other person, not the situation, us. And that's real power. Set boundaries with strength and clarity. Staying calm doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means knowing your limits and enforcing them without anger. A firm but steady, I won't be spoken to like that, or we can continue this conversation when it's respectful, is a way of holding your ground without losing your cool. I used to think that setting boundaries meant I had to be tough, that if I wasn't firm enough, people wouldn't take me seriously, and if I was too firm, I'd come off as rude, cold, or unkind. But here's what I've learned. Boundaries aren't about controlling other people. They're about protecting our own space. And the thing about boundaries, they only work if we're willing to hold them without letting emotions take over. Because let's be real, when someone provokes us, it's easy to snap a boundary instead of state it. It's easy to fire back. You don't get to talk to me like that, in a way that sounds like an attack rather than a simple, steady truth. But boundaries aren't about aggression. They're about clarity. And clarity is kindness. Think about the last time someone crossed a line with you. Maybe they made a cutting remark, pushed a conversation too far, or dismissed something important to you. Now ask yourself, did I set a boundary or did I just get upset? Because there's a difference. Getting upset is natural, but setting a boundary, that's intentional. A boundary sounds like, I'm happy to continue this conversation, but not if there's yelling. I respect your opinion and I need you to respect mine too. I'm going to take a break from this discussion and come back when we can have it productively. No over-explaining, no justifying. Just clear, direct, and steady. And here's something we don't talk about enough. Setting boundaries isn't just about words. It's also about follow-through. If you say, I won't engage in this kind of conversation, and then you do engage, you've just taught the other person that your boundaries don't mean much. But when you say it and stick to it, that's when people start to understand that you mean what you say. Now, I want to be honest. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. And sometimes people won't like it. They might get defensive. They might push back. But here's what I want you to remember. Other people's reactions to your boundaries are not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to honor your own well-being. And when you do that, when you stand firm in your calm, clear, and steady truth, that's when you stop being pulled into other people's chaos. That's when you stop feeling like you're constantly managing other people's emotions. That's when you take back your power. Because at the end of the day, staying calm in the face of provocation isn't just about composure. It's about self-respect. And boundaries, they're one of the most powerful ways we can show up for ourselves. So here's the truth. Staying calm when someone is trying to provoke you isn't about being passive. It's not about ignoring the problem or pretending their words don't sting. It's about choosing how you respond. It's about protecting your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. When you refuse to take the bait, you keep your power. When you reframe the narrative, you stop making their behavior about you. When you master non-reactivity, you break the cycle. And when you set boundaries with clarity, you teach people how to treat you. This isn't easy work. It takes practice. It takes self-awareness. It takes a willingness to pause when every instinct is telling you to react. But I promise you this, every time you choose calm over chaos, every time you hold your ground without losing yourself, you are winning in ways that truly matter. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, take a breath, stay steady, remember your power, and most of all, don't let their storm pull you under. You've got this.